My guest this week, Captain Kline. Do you want to become a pilot? Let's find out how.
Good evening and good evening. Welcome to Stewart Spotlight Podcast Live. My name is William Stewart Jr. and I am your host this evening. Today is Friday, November the 15th, 2024. I want to thank you for tuning in and watching another episode of Stewart Spotlight. You know, Thanksgiving is fast approaching and Christmas and New Year's is right around the corner. Time waits for no one. I hope everyone had a wonderful week and getting ready for the weekend. You know, all the news network and social media are still talking about the 2024 election, but God is in control. I never realized how divided and so much hatred that exists in our country, which prompts me to discuss a situation I encountered. We all experience some kind of hurt and failure in life through family, friends, relatives, or other. I had a situation that knocked me down, but I got up and brushed myself off and will continue to move forward. I'm a visionary. I don't focus on things existing now, but down the road. I'm not perfect and far from it, but I'm always willing to learn new projects, suggest ideas, and enhance my level of education. Over the years, I've been serving the Lord and been a good steward. I learned throughout my life to respect leadership, especially in the church. We must learn to respect, trust, and communicate to each other in an orderly fashion. A lack of communication always leads to confusion. Therefore, as Christians, things must be done decent and in order, which brings me to mind. Church hurt. It's the worst hurt I have ever felt. After this break, my guest, Captain Kline, will discuss how to become a pilot. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Once again, my name is William Stewart Jr., and I stated before I'm your host. But before I bring my guests on, and you know, I'm always asking for you to do one or two things. I know you're saying, okay, bring it on. I'm about to bring it on right now. I need your support. I need you to like, subscribe, share, and make sure you turn on that notification bell. So therefore, every time we're live, you'll get a notification on your on your devices, such as your tablet, phone, computers, to let you know Stewart Spotlight is on. Before I introduce my guests, just want to give you a little history. Sean, I've been knowing Sean for quite a few years. Sean was my instructor that taught me how to fly that I received my license. So without further ado, I just want to bring on Sean. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hi, William. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing
Okay.
very good.
I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to schedule some time, so therefore we can talk about aviation, because this is a great a net of worth. Net of worth. Oh gosh, I can't even talk right now. A wealth of knowledge out there to learn about aviation, and I figured that you would be able to bring it on and take it home from there. But
I will do my best.
before we go there, I know you're married. And how long you been married, Sean?
I've been married for 7 years now.
Okay.
With my wonderful wife, Ashley. We met in 2011, and we got married in 2017. So,
Oh, okay. Great.
yeah.
And how's the family doing?
We're good. We've been, like I said, we're busy. We both work, and that takes up most of our time. But we did find out not too long ago that we're expecting a little one in March
Shut up.
next year.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that one now. I didn't know that one now. You
we,
brought something new on me now.
sorry, I had to throw a surprise in, I suppose.
Okay, well, I
So
appreciate that.
the family will be growing. So
Okay.
we're expecting a little girl in March. So
Okay, audience, viewers, you heard it here first. Sean is expecting a baby in March. A
that's
girl
right.
at
That's
that.
right.
Wow. Congratulations to
Yeah.
you and Ashley. And
Thank you.
maybe it's more to come, huh?
We'll see. We'll see how round one goes. So
Okay, no problem. So, Sean, let's start with your youth. When you were,
mhm.
how many siblings do you have?
I have one younger sister
Okay, so you're the oldest.
named Scarlett.
So you're the oldest brother.
I'm the oldest. Yes.
Okay, and your parents?
Yep. My parents, my mother, Sandy, my father, Rick, they divorced, unfortunately, when I was younger. My father now lives in the Phoenix area out in Arizona, and my mother still lives here in the Chicagoland area, so not too far from us. So.
Okay. So now I believe you told me that what really motivated you to get into aviation or flying planes?
So, from a young age, as I said, my parents being divorced, I ended up spending a lot of time with my grandfather, who was a pilot, and
Okay.
really the only other pilot in the family. He was also a big part of Schaumburg Airport. He was the manager there. He owned a flight school and FBO and all the services there. FBO is a fixed base operator. They sell fuel. Handle transient aircraft. And so it was a unique situation at the Schaumburg Airport back in those days. It was privately owned, but public use. And so the facilities there actually included an apartment where my grandfather lived. And so I would go spend the weekends with him at the airport there. And most kids grow up drawing clowns or dogs or cars, and I was constantly sketching airplanes and reciting the starting checklist to a Piper Archer when I was 8 years old. And that's just all I knew as a young kid. Was I loved airplanes. That's all I thought about, was flying airplanes. And it was thanks to him, and his influence on me, with him being in the aviation industry. So,
Okay.
So that's kind of what started it. That's how I got into it.
So you spend a lot of time at the airport then?
You could say that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I learned how to ride a bike at the airport.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of firsts. I learned how to throw a baseball at the airport. My grandpa had a horse there named Amy. I learned how to ride a horse at the airport. So there was a lot of firsts in my youth that occurred at Schaumburg Airport. Yeah.
Everything at the airport.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yes. Yeah, a lot of it.
Wow. Now you said your grandfather was the manager of the Schaumburg Airport. So he basically ran the whole thing.
Yep. So he did the groundskeeping, repairs, hangar, the tenant rent, He handled all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so all the parts of running and operating an airport, I was part of as a kid. I learned how to drive a tractor and cut grass and that kind of thing, because of what his job entailed. So.
Oh, okay. But you also mentioned at the age of 8, you was always at the airport. But from there, you was in grammar school at the age of
Yes,
8.
yeah.
And then you went to high school, and you were still at the airport too.
So, yes, is the short answer. My grandfather unfortunately passed away when I was 10, and there was a brief period there in my life from about 10 to 13 where I wasn't at the airport much. But the same time that my grandfather died is actually when the Schaumburg Airport was completely reconstructed into what it is today, which changed basically what I remember as a kid into what it is now. And so there was a change of business. There was change of facilities, change of the runway. You've seen the pictures, I think,
yes,
to see how they've changed the airport.
Right.
So when I was 13, I kind of started bugging my mom, and I said, I really want to go fly airplanes again. And much to her chagrin, I'm guessing, because, what mother wants to have to not only pay for that, but, let her son go do that. So, but she did. So she started taking me out, and I started taking lessons about once a month, back out at Schaumburg. And, I was doing it at kind of a slower pace because I couldn't solo till I was 16 anyway. So, but by the time I was 14 or 15, I was just, chomping at the bit to fly, to go by myself.
So now, with your grandfather being the manager of Schaumburg, did you get any kind of discounts?
I don't know if I got any discounts, but it was nice to see familiar faces.
Oh, okay.
I had a lot of support at the airport, but it wasn't quite as expensive as it is today,
Oh,
so,
yes.
But I don't know that I got discounts per se. So.
Okay, but now, what age did you get your license?
I got my license actually when I was 18. So I soloed on my 16th birthday. And then I was in high school at the time. And so, which is obviously a complex and busy time for any young person. But so I soloed on my 16th birthday. Then I kind of got a little distracted and then finally got back to it and got my license when I was 18. And then once I got my license at 18, though, I kind of hit the ground running. I was like, I had a good instructor who really pushed me hard, kept me just focused on just, get this stuff done, get it done, get it done, get it done. And that's all I did is I ate, slept, breathed, just aviation. I worked at the airport, fueling airplanes, parking airplanes. I was doing flight training at the time. I was told that when I was sleeping on the couch, people overheard me talking about V speeds. So there was, it was definitely thick,
stuck in your head,
in the brain.
right.
Yeah. So.
Now that sounds so familiar because I remember the days that you used to tell me, "Get it done, get it done, get it done." I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try now."
It's one of those things that the faster you can knock it out, I think the easier it is.
So now you went on from the private to get your multi and instrument.
Yeah, right after. So I did my private, I did my instrument. Then I did my commercial multi-engine rating. Right after that, I did my commercial single engine rating. And then by that time was getting ready to go to the University of Illinois. And that's when I enrolled there. I did my certified flight instructor rating, followed by my instrument instructor rating. And then while I was in college, shortly thereafter that, I got my multi-engine instructor rating. So I had all of that by the time I was 19 or 20. So, I mean, like I said, from 18 to 20, I was just, doing as much as I could. Yeah.
That's a lot of studying from that period. I mean, to receive all those different ratings. I mean, you were still in high school. Just about to
transition
go
from high school to college. Yeah.
right? Okay. So now you mentioned all these different ratings, and I want the audience the viewers to know these acronyms about the MEI, CFI, CFI the ATP. Just give us a rundown of those.
So as I mentioned, and as we in the aviation industry would know it, like you said, CFI,
Right.
CFII, MEI. Those are basically accreditations for your instructor rating. So CFI is certificated flight instructor. When we say CFII, that's certificated flight instructor instrument, meaning teaching people how to fly by reference to instrument in the clouds. The MEI is a multi-engine instructor, and then after I was out of college, I got my ATP, which is the airline transport pilot rating, which that one takes a little bit longer because you need 1,500 hours for it. It just takes a little bit of time to build that experience up. So
now, was this very expensive?
Yes, I mean it definitely is, and like I said, at the time was, for someone that's a young person. I mean, you're basically picking up whatever best deals you can and trying to fly as economically as you can, just because you don't have the money at that time in your life to do it.
Right.
If I was to try to give you a figure, I probably couldn't do it, but. If it wasn't for the help of people around me and people who supported me to do this, I mean, I don't think it would be possible just on my own. It would have taken longer, I think, if I didn't have that. So
okay, let's go back, because I know maybe someone may be looking at this and say, well, I want to be a pilot, and do they have any scholarships or any kind of funds available to apply for? Because I remember when I was going through this, at that particular time, it was like 160, 180 per hour. And the minimum, you had to have 40 hours because you got to do the 20 hours solo, 20 hours dual.
Yep.
So just break that down for us, Sean.
Yeah. So for the first part of your question, there are scholarships and there are opportunities out there from various. I mean, there's a multitude of pilot groups that do offer scholarships for young people that are interested in aviation, and really it doesn't take much at all to do some research to find those if you're interested. And like I said, there's so many different pilot groups. There's local pilot groups. There's AOPA is a huge one that most of us know, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the Experimental Aircraft Association, otherwise known as the EAA. Those are some of the big ones that do definitely support that and have a lot of guidance on their websites for young people who are looking for ways to get into aviation and figure out the financial side of it. As far as you said, the breakdown of price when you were learning, that's about right. And that was probably with the airplane and the instructor.
Yes.
Would be my guess. And so now, as we talked about earlier, I have a flight school at Schaumburg. I can tell you just basic information. One of our mid-range 172s, Cessna 172, which is a primary training airplane, is $175 an hour just for the airplane, and then it's $65 an hour for the instructor. So, you got $240 an hour, just for the airplane and the instructor. So it's not necessarily that number times 40, because the 40 hours at a minimum requires 20 hours of dual, 10 hours of solo, and then there's 10 hours of basically more dual because you have to prep for a check ride. So I mean, it is an investment, but I think, as you could probably attest to, it's one of the most, even if you don't do it as a career, it's probably one of the most unique and rewarding things you can do, as far as investing your time and money into something, just because there's not a lot of people who can say they can fly their own airplane or fly an airplane. So,
that's and
it's a very unique sense of freedom to fly an airplane. So
now the 20 hours solo and the 20 hours dual before you go to the solo. Give us some little history about the dual before you go to solo.
Yeah. So the 20 hours of dual, basically that's required is we have a breakdown of all the different maneuvers we have to teach you. Um, we have to ensure that you can safely operate the airplane all the way from the time you start it to the time you shut it down. And so, but in those 20 hours, the first milestone for most students is we're trying to get you to your first solo, and get you to go fly the airplane by yourself,
Right.
without us in it. And a lot of people are surprised that you do that before you get your license. I think it never really struck me because I just was so familiar with the process that that's just how it worked. But a lot of people would stop me and say, wait a minute, I have to go fly the airplane by myself before I get my license. We're like, yeah, that's one of the stepping stones.
Yes.
William probably remembers.
Yes. Hands are sweating, palms was wet. Everything was just shaking on me like, okay, really? You want me to get up there by myself? That's not, but
Yep.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So we spend a bulk of that time prepping you for that. And then once you get your first solo done, then, okay, we've got that part done. We start building a little bit of confidence in yourself. We send you on solo cross countries. There's a certain amount of solo cross country time you need. And then once those requirements are met, really we start, we accomplish those 10 hours of solo time that you need. 5 hours of it has to be cross country time. In FAA speak, cross country time means 50 miles from point of departure to point of destination. So we send you on a cross country where you go at least 50 miles away from the departure airport. And then the other 5 hours, there's a couple little specific things we have you do, but really it's just to get used to making the decisions and acting as what we call pilot in command of the airplane. Meaning, PIC. So you're making the decisions. You're responsible for the safety of flight. And then, after you've got those 10 hours, we're just getting you ready for the check ride with an examiner and going over the maneuvers that you have to demonstrate for your check ride. And also, as you know, there's an oral and a ground portion of the check ride where you sit and you discuss with an examiner about all the things that you need to have knowledge-wise. So, so the time spent is, like you said, it's a minimum of 40 hours. I think really the average is more around probably closer to 60 for most people, because it just doesn't come, to most people in 40 hours. It takes a little bit more practice than that. So,
well, it took me about 60 hours because financially I couldn't continue to go. So I had to stop, go. So I had to refresh and things of that nature. But now
that's very common. It's very common. Yeah.
So now a person get their license. Okay, I got my license. Can I charge people to fly with me?
You might as well apply to United.
Well, I'm talking about a private pilot, not a commercial.
No. I'm just kidding. There are plenty of as you know, there's plenty of restrictions on what you can do as a private pilot.
Yes.
But there's also a lot you can do as a private pilot. So basically, you're able to operate an airplane with passengers day or night, as far as you'd like to fly. There are some restrictions in that regard, but you could fly all over the country, like just with a private pilot certificate. When I say there's some restrictions to it, there's certain weather requirements that we have to have. So you have to stay in what we call visual conditions, meaning you have to have reference to the ground or reference to a horizon. You can't fly in the clouds or in visibility lower than a certain amount. It's still very, very, there's a lot you can do with it. The activities that you can do with it are still numerous, but as you go on in your flying, you start to realize that if you want to be able to reliably make trips, you need to start being able to deal with weather. And that's why most people go from the private into the instrument, is so that they can start tackling that,
But who would want to fly in bad weather in a small plane? That's just common sense. If it starts thunderstorm, you think I'm going to fly through something like that?
Well, apparently flight instructors don't have a choice. We just have to go teach you bad weather. No, it's more, I would say, having your instrument rating doesn't mean you're invincible. It doesn't mean you can fly into
Right.
thunderstorms or fly into severe icing conditions or something like that. What it gives you is the knowledge to figure out whether or not the weather's safe enough for you to fly. And there is a certain point that we can go to that it's completely safe. We flight plan and look at the weather to make sure that we are flying in conditions that both the pilot and the airplane can handle.
Okay.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. Though you should not take a small airplane and fly into a line of thunderstorms. Or
Not me. I'm sorry.
No.
So Sean, I know there's a tradition. Whenever someone do a solo, why do they have to cut your shirt?
See, now you surprised me with a question.
Right.
You know what? I've actually heard that it can be a regional or a local tradition. It's a tradition at our airport, or at least for our school, we do it. I don't exactly know the origin of it, why we do it. Other than to make a student pilot look ridiculous with their shirt missing.
I remember when I first solo, and I had a nice shirt on and then I came back to the FBO and they want to cut my shirt. I was like, wait, what you doing? Oh, we got to cut and put your name on it first solo. But this is a good shirt. I had a problem with that, but I guess that's a tradition in the aviation solo.
It is a tradition, and we've unfortunately seen the latest generation, I would say, kind of getting away from it. And so my business partner Chris and I were like, oh no, we're doing this. We're cutting people's shirts because that's what we've been doing all along. So we still do it. And like you said, I think it's more of just to have the memento of the day that you did it. I mean, it is a big deal. I mean, the first time you fly an airplane by yourself is a big deal. Yes, and there should be some way to remember that. And I think many of the pilots I know, frame that shirt tail, they keep it in their office or somewhere where people can see it because it's a pretty cool thing. So,
because if I had known, I would have worn an old shirt. You can tear it, whatever. But one question before I go to a break. When a person starts, because maybe someone is listening or looking at this podcast right now and say, oh, I'm really interested in this. So I'm trying to see how much money am I going to need to get from point A to all the way to an ATP, and if my parents is going to help me, or if there's some grants out there, can you give me some kind of estimate of what would it cost?
To get to the ATP is definitely it's going to be a higher number. It's really about getting to your flight instructor rating. That's the money that you need to think about, because once you're a flight instructor, then you can get a job as a flight instructor and actually get paid to fly and be able to log time. Not everyone does it that way. I know a lot of people do other jobs like pipeline patrol or banner towing, other types of flying jobs you can do to build time. I would tell you that I hate doing this, to be honest, because I think people sometimes think I got to have this in my bank account to do it. It's not really the case, right? Flight schools like mine, you pay as you go. We work to your schedule and that kind of thing. But you're probably looking close to $100,000, if not more, to get to your flight instructor rating. I mean, there are two different kind of pathways to get your different ratings. And one is what we call Part 61, which is under general operating. And under Part 61, we are, all approved flight instructors, all the airplanes are held to the same maintenance standards as any other flying educational facility. But what we don't have is an approved curriculum by the FAA with approved check airmen on staff. To get that, you have to go to what's called a Part 141 program or school. Places like that are more collegiate type places. and therefore will have like tuition or tuition due up front, where you might actually have to put down a healthy amount of that
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
to get that part done.
Yeah.
So there are two different ways to do it, as we've talked about, but there are, if you go the 141 route, or even the 161 route, you can get loans for that. But it's probably easier to get educational loans if you're going to a collegiate program or a 141 program.
Okay. Well, Sean, stay with me right quick. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with Captain Sean Kline. Hold on. And we're back with Captain Sean Kline. So, Sean, let's talk about your job. I mean, you have a big responsibility as far as flying jets. And matter of fact, I'm gonna show the audience, the viewers who's watching, of the planes you fly. Now, this is what Sean flies. Sean flies a Gulfstream 550. This Gulfstream costs an average between $60 to $75 million, an average. And he fly corporate people and whoever can afford it. And plus, if you want to rent this is an average between $8,000 to $11,000 an hour. Unbelievable. So, Sean, break this down for us. Tell us about this. That's a very expensive job.
It's an expensive airplane. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a wonderful airplane. I should start with that. But yeah, ever since I was young, as we kind of talked about, I always loved the private side of the industry, which we also call like corporate aviation. And so that's the route I went after I was kind of able to get the opportunity to start flying. That I actually started in what's called charter, where you fly airplanes for people that it was kind of like a limo service, right? They call up, they tell us where they need to go, and we take them wherever they need to go in various types of airplanes. I've kind of worked my way up into different segments where it's been both private flying for just one company or individuals. And that's kind of where I'm at now with this job, is we just fly for one client. And it's a lot of fun. It's the type of job that you never really know what your schedule is going to be. But I will say that our account is pretty good as far as giving us a pretty good idea of what we're doing for the next several weeks. It's, you could go airlines or you can go this route. Is kind of the way that most professional pilots go. I always loved these types of airplanes. I thought they looked cool. I thought they were, to me, I love the idea of going to different places instead of selected routes that you just keep going the same places. And that's what I really like about this job, is I never really know where I'm going on the next trip until I find out. Even though we go to a lot of the same places, it's kind of a toss up of where you're going to go.
So now your client, I'm not sure that they're a millionaire or whoever. So how much time, well, you say you have a schedule a week in advance?
Yeah, right now, like, I know about trips into January and February.
Already?
So we have an idea of them at least. Yeah. And it's not to say that they couldn't decide to go somewhere, next week. If they wanted to do that, they could do that. But for the most part, they're pretty well scheduled. And every individual or aircraft owner is different, right? They might be more last minute, or they might be more schedule driven type individuals, so it can just depend. Because I'm flying for one customer, it's a little different than charter. Like you kind of know, when I was flying
Mm-hmm.
charter, people would call up all the time and just want to go tomorrow, or they'd want to go, whenever they need to go. But we were also flying any number of the general public that could afford to do that kind of flying. So it's a little different than that. So now I have a little bit better idea of my schedule, but again, it can change.
Okay.
It's a little bit different than being an airline pilot, where you have a pretty good idea of what your schedule is at the end of the month. The next 30 days, you know exactly what you're doing. So
So where are some of the places you've flown?
I let's see, across. I've been to multiple places in Europe. England and Spain, Germany, France. I've been to Finland, Norway. Been to Greenland. Spent a couple of days in Greenland. That was kind of interesting. Been to Africa. Been to Brazil on a couple fuel stops. That's really about it. Like, I know you laughed at me before, but it's
You know,
I haven't been to a lot of the other side of the world yet, though. So
I know you're saying I laugh because I spoke to Sean. I said, Sean, Wednesday. I said, Sean, name some of the places. He said, well, I've never been to a lot of different places. And he started naming all these. I said, those is enough places you've been to. I've never been to some of those places. But now, when you go to those places and you're being chartered, or your client is taken, how long do they stay? And what about the hotel and the food? Do they all pay for this as a pilot?
yeah. So yeah, they can stay as long as they'd like, obviously. But I would say most of our trips overseas are anywhere from like a week to 2 weeks, or maybe just over 2 weeks. And a lot of times, if we're staying longer, we'll go to a couple different places. And we don't generally sit in one place for 2 weeks,
Okay.
for example. But yeah, wherever we go, our hotels are paid for. We our food is paid for, our meals, and transportation as well. So
Mhm.
it's a great way to see the world. I mean, it's a very that's probably a really huge benefit, or side benefit, of being a pilot, is you get to really experience all the places that we don't get to see normally. But yeah, it's kind of a nice way to do that. So.
Now, your client's taking you to these different locations. Now, this take you away from your house. So, is this a beneficial for a single or a married couple?
So I think that it can depend on the person. I have, like I said before, a very angelic and supportive wife who, I tried my best to explain to her when I first met her, that I didn't have a normal schedule, or a normal life, I guess you
Okay.
could say. So it takes a lot of understanding of both sides. If you are married, it's I would say much easier, obviously, if you're single, to just get up and go if you have to. Even as a single person, though, I think as you get older, you start to value your time at home, and you start to value your own personal time. And so that's why I think as you get older, it's not real important if you're married or single, because either way, there's things you want to be around for. So it just, it's hard to say like it's a work-life balance, because what I do hinges around someone else's schedule, so I have to dedicate some portion of my time to that. But I wish I could give you a straight answer. I don't know if it's easier for one or the other. I think
Hmm.
it just depends on the people, but you have to be very, very aware that if you are married to someone who wants to fly, or is already flying, or is getting into flying and wants to do it as a career, that especially in the early stages of it, you're going to miss a lot of things. You're going to miss birthdays. You're going to miss holidays, and that's just part of the job. So, that's one of those things that has to be understood, I think, early, so.
Okay, so in the FAA or Part 41, I believe, Part 41, how many hours?
141.
141. How many hours
Yeah.
could a person like yourself fly something of that nature?
You mean
in a
like
particular month?
Yeah. So I looked these up so I would sound like I was educated on this. The It's actually broken down into quarters. We have a daily, like in a 24-hour period, the amount we can fly is up to 10 hours with 2 pilots. But in a quarter, we can fly up to 500 hours. In any 2 consecutive quarters, it's 800 hours. And then over a year, it's 1,400 hours. So, which is a lot. I mean, that's, where I'm at, I fly about 300 hours a year. So it's, 1,400 hours in a year would be quite a bit. That would be a lot of
right.
flying.
Yes. Okay. So now, someone may be looking at this. Say, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to fly those cool planes, those cool jets like that." Does a person have to have a college degree to get to a position where you at?
No. Aviation's one of the industries where it's not a requirement, mainly because of all the specific certificates and ratings we have to hold in order to fly these airplanes. And as far as I know, I believe even all the major airlines have dropped the requirement for a college degree. We may get into this in a minute or not, but there was a pilot shortage that kind of unraveled itself about 7 or 8 years ago. And I think as part of that, it was like, no, we just need qualified candidates, people who have their ratings, have their experience. The college degree did not, necessarily become something that was a requirement to be a pilot anymore. So.
Okay. Oh, okay. I was about to ask about the retirement because I know that at one point it was a shortage of pilots, and I thought they had dropped the 1,500 down to like 1,200 hours minimum to get into the commercial.
Not yet.
Okay.
There are reduced ATP minimums if you have other experience. So that's one of the benefits of going to a 141 program is there's reduced ATP minimums. So instead of 1,500 hours for your ATP, I believe it's 1,250 and 1,000 are 2 of the different hour requirements, depending on how much experience you had or how much flying you did in one of those environments.
Okay.
But yeah, it's. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily change right now. The pilot shortage kind of is still going on, and so they're still requiring the same amounts of time to get to the airline. So
okay, now comparing what you do privately versus in a commercial, United, American, Spirit, Southwest, what's the difference?
There's not really a ton of difference, I guess I would say. As far as experience level of the pilot and qualifications, there's not, there's a lot of similarities in a lot of ways. We fly under what's called Part 135, which is on-demand charter. We're held to a lot of the same kind of requirements as the airline world, which is called Part 121. So these are all federal regulations. I keep bringing up Part 61, Part 91, all those different numbers. And basically, we may not require the 1,500 hours to work as a corporate pilot, but there are experience criteria that you have to have. Whereas the airline world, you're really not getting into the airline world unless you have 1,500 hours at a minimum.
Okay.
We can hire with less, but then you also start getting into what insurance companies would require, to let you fly in a turbine aircraft anyway. So there's, we take check rides just like airline pilots do every 6 months. We have to have the same medicals as airline pilots. So it's, there's a lot of similarities in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Corporate pilots, we probably end up having to do a little bit more of the actual flight planning and weight and balance and that kind of thing. Whereas airlines have dispatchers and people to kind of look at that and file flight plans for the pilots. But the pilots still have to review that and agree with whatever, the dispatchers and the people who file those flight plans for them. They have to agree with whatever they came up with. So,
Okay. Well, my last two questions is that, okay, could you fly one of those commercial airlines with your credential?
So every jet, as you probably know, William, every jet requires type specific training, which translates to a type rating. I guess if you're asking, could I fly it and keep it upright and get it on the ground? I think I could figure it out, but I don't want to sit here and say,
oh yeah, I can do it
for sure. But, but I'm pretty sure I could figure it out.
Okay, and my last question, because I know someone's out there looking, and I'm asking about your salary. Okay, I'm spending $100,000 or more to get my license to go all through all this stuff. Now I like what I seen Sean fly. How much does a person make in a year on an average?
So I would say in our industry, it totally depends on the type of airplane you fly and a little bit on the business that you work for. I've seen starting salaries in the $70,000 to $90,000 range, for a pilot just starting out. And then that I've heard of salaries north of 400,000 in some of the larger cabin jets. So, and when you're starting out, it takes probably 4 or 5 years to start getting to a point where you're going to be, either being recommended to upgrade to captain and being well north of 100,000 at that point, So the airlines and even the regional airlines, they've all come up in what their starting pay is. So almost all of them are right around the 95,000 to 100,000 mark, for starting pay. So it does go up quickly though. If you're at the airlines, it almost doubles by the second year. And so you start, you're pretty comfortable on a salary like that. So,
and they have some good benefits too, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, the airlines, they have a really good retirement package. You obviously get travel benefits for you and your family. So there's a lot to be said for that, and the company I work for, we have a good 401k, we have health and dental and vision, and, so you can certainly find good benefits on either side of the industry that you decide to go with. So
now what do you think about the industry, the airlines industry, the aviation industry in the next 5-10 years? Is it going to go up or down, or is it going to stagnate?
Well, it's very cyclical, right? And it goes up and down. I think right now we're actually coming into more of a lull in the aviation industry because we've been on such a strong upswing over the past probably 5-6 years. Pilot salaries, job availability was very high. Salaries were high. The number of pilots were low, and qualified pilots. As I mentioned before, they're expecting the pilot shortage that we were discussing briefly to continue all the way to 2030. So it's still a good time to get into it, even though I do think we're a little bit, it's just, like I said, because of how high things were over the past few years, we're starting to slow down a little bit. But I think over the next 5 years, it'll taper off a little bit, but then I think it's going to come back up as we say, hey, we got to fill these seats, in these airplanes. So,
and what's the how old can you be to? What's the age limit? As far as,
so you have to be, most jobs want you to be 21.
Right.
To go to the regional airlines, you have to be 21. You have to be 23 to go to any of the major carriers. And then corporate flying can be a little bit different. I mean, it really, as long as you're old enough to hold a commercial license, which is 18, you could get hired technically at some of the commercial or private sector jobs. So there's, in that regard, I would say, I guess the minimum would be like 18 years old.
Now, what's the
but
max?
A lot of places want you about 2021.
So what's the max before you have to retire?
Maximum at the airlines right now is 65. And in corporate aviation, there really is no mandated maximum, but I know some of the companies have started kind of mandating 70 as a retirement age, but there's not like a federal law or anything like that that limits that. So
okay. Well, Sean, I really appreciate you coming on, and that was very some good information concerning aviation, and someone maybe watching and maybe enthused about becoming a pilot and say, oh, I want to do that someday. So you want to give us some encouraging words for those young or older people who maybe want to get into aviation?
I would tell you, as I said before, even if this was a career choice or something you're looking to do recreationally, it's one of the most rewarding, challenging, but unique and just wonderful things I think you can do, because a lot of times people think we just fly airplanes, right? That's what your license is about. But as you know, William, you learn physics, you learn meteorology, you learn, math, you learn, there's a lot, communication, talking on the radio. There's so much that goes into flying that makes you just a more well-rounded person. That I think it's just one of those things that it's hard to describe until you do it, So I would encourage everyone to at least give it a try. Go do an intro flight at your local airport, and see what it's all about. That's probably the best thing I can say. So,
well, I want to tell this story before you go. I remember when I went through my check ride. That was very interesting, because the instructor told me, okay, we're going from here, here, and here. I said, okay. He said, well, map it out. And I did. And he sat on the right side and didn't say a word from the time I took off to go to those places. So I guess he was observing me, am I doing everything right? And until he reached over and turned the power off. And I looked at him, what are you doing? He said, okay, you just lost the engine. What do you do? So now I had to think, because when you have that comfort zone, when I used to have Sean next to me, I was like, oh, well, anything go wrong, Sean's going to take care of it. But when you have to do this on your own, and you have to think ahead of the plane. So therefore, you got to think, okay, what should I do? How should I recover? And things of that nature. And it took a lot. But I land, taxi over to the parking spot. He said, congratulations, you're a pilot. That was the best feeling I have ever had in my entire life. But I just wanted to share that story with you. Sean, I want to thank you. And also, those individuals who are interested in becoming a pilot, Sean has his own his own school in Schaumburg. You can look him up. Give him a call at 847-812-7000 and talk to Chris or Sean. They are owners, and they have other instructors there. You can visit the website at flyholidayAirways.com. But if you mention Stewart Spotlight, you will get a 10% off of your ground school lesson. They are located at 905 West Irving Park in Schaumburg, Illinois. Sean, I want to thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, William. Thank you.
Until next time, Sean, you stay safe, and I'm going to be calling you for something else anyway, so it don't make a difference anyway.
You take care of yourself, William. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Talk with you later, Sean.
Yep.
Well, that was very interesting. I had flashbacks at one time when Sean was talking about certain things and the things I had to go to get my license. So it was very informative and educational. So if you're interested in becoming a pilot, make sure you look up Sean in Schaumburg and go out there and get an intro lesson. I think it's less than $100 or something of that nature, to get the feel, to see if you're really up to flying in a small plane, and maybe you want to pursue becoming a pilot. Anyway, we had a trivia question last week, and we do have a winner. The trivia question was, what famous Disney character has a pet dog named Pluto? And the answer was Mickey Mouse. The winner is Sherry McIntosh from Orlando, Florida. Congratulations, Sherry. You will be receiving a t-shirt in the mail for giving us the correct answer. Allow 5 to 10 business days to receive it. And please continue to watch and share with your family and friends and neighbors. But right now we have another trivia question. Let's bring it on.
Give the correct answer and you can be a winner of this Stewart Spotlight t-shirt, sponsored by William Stewart Jr.
It's time for Stewart's Trivia. Here's another easy one for you this week. What is the only fruit that has the seeds on the outside? Is it A, B, C, or D? The first correct caller at 888-552-1944 will be the winner of the Stewart Spotlight t-shirt. Good luck.
Yes, that is correct. The first person who give us a call of the 888-552-1944 will be the winner of the Stewart Spotlight t-shirt. We have a very interesting guest that's coming on next week. My guests will be Dr. Walt Whitman, a gospel artist, a gospel recording artist, and he has his own group, Walt Whitman and the Soul Children of Chicago. He will be on next week. Make sure you tune in. Let's see how he got started with those children and recording artists, because he has several albums out there, CDs and things of that nature. So now it is that time for Brother Lee.
Well. I tell you what, I was going to sing a song dedicated to Brother Sean, and it goes a little something like this. I believe I could fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and just fly away. Brother, listen, I think that many people should explore the possibility of learning how to fly. And not just because it is a very, how can I put it, very interesting way to travel, but it also could put a lot of money in your pocket. I'm pretty sure that financially, Brother Sean, by flying, has really made some good pocket change. And I just want to encourage a lot of people that's interested in aviation and become dedicated to this process. It would be something of interest to many. Listen, I just want to say a special prayer for Brother Sean, because not only is flying, they say that's the safest way to travel, but I tell you what, anything that we do, we must always think of God, because while you're up there, you're closer to God than you really. I know that's a joke, but sometimes people feel that way. When I'm flying, I feel I'm closer to God. I feel closer to heaven. So let me pray a prayer for you, Brother Sean, if you will. And I'm going to pray that God will continue to protect you and guide you and bring you people that are interested in flying. Now, God, we thank you. We thank you, Lord, for everything that you've done and everything that you've been doing. We pray, God, that you will give traveling mercies and grace, give safe passage to this man while he's training and teaching those how to fly. And then, God, we pray that you will give him safety and keep him safe and keep his students safe and keep their minds concentrated on the duty at hand. And Lord, we just thank you for everything you've done. And then, God, we pray another special prayer for Stewart and Stewart Spotlight. Again, God, there are many of those that need to share their story on this social media platform. And we pray, God, right now that you will send the people, bring the people, so that they can be a witness and a testimony to the good things that you have done. In Jesus' name we pray. Back to you, Stuart.
All right, Lee, I appreciate that. You must be in your car because you're kind of dark there. No light.
Yeah, I'm at an event and I had to come out because they were so noisy.
Oh, okay.
Best friend of mine's having a birthday party.
Okay,
So
no
now
problem.
they're getting ready to travel to another location. I need to get over there. But I thank God for Stewart Spotlight and for the guests.
I appreciate that very much. And I guess I'll see you next week, same time, same station.
Same time, same station.
You be safe out there. Okay, well, that was a very interesting story today. Sean, I really want to appreciate your time and your knowledge. And I definitely want to appreciate you on my behalf because you taught me a lot about aviation, where I have endured to being safe and to continue to fly and to maintain that level of excellence. Well, this concludes our show this evening. I really want to thank you for listening and keep me lifted up. Keep the prayer around me because God the devil was trying to attack, but I defeat the devil. Until next week, I want you to always remember it's not about me, it's all about you. Until next week, you be safe. Have a nice weekend. Good night.